probably somewhere in there in the mix is trying to figure out how many new people are coming into town. And it seems to me that at least for the last year, it also presupposes, I think, any buyers, any sellers, it's a dynamic. People are selling for mine. But last year, there was selling. And I don't think there's been really a lot of people buying. So there's probably a component to that kindergarten class that relies on new people coming in. Previously, we just said, well, there's probably older people are moving and replacing younger people. So, has there been any sort of quantitative look at that, or are we still sort of the 10-year average, and we're just kind of plugging that down? The reason why I say it is because it's increased 47 students. That's quite significant.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, then let's deal with part one, and then because I can only hold the thought that long.
And you can get back.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. We looked at that. There's a couple things that are entering in here that we're just beginning to see that I think are unique. Is that some of those homes are not selling, but people are moving on, and they're renting their homes out.
How do you know that?
Because of some recent enrollment, and that have come. Yes, and I.
So you ask them. How do you know that you have renters?
Because they have to bring us proof of residency, and that is a lease.
But you're not making you haven't made an adjustment, right? You're still relying on the 10-year.
Yes, we are still relying on the 10-year. By the way, I also did a 5-year and a 3-year, to see if there was much in the way of differences, because of course the last 3 years haven't accelerated as much as the previous 7 had. But I still couldn't predict where those kids would land in which school. And the other thing I can't predict is I can't predict how many students who normally would have gone to a full day kindergarten because parents work, who will not. They will go to a half-day kindergarten with us instead, and then daycare. So that's the other factor I cannot predict.
Maybe that answers my part two. Part two would be there's a significant increase from the actual kindergarten now to next year's first grade, right across. Mm-hmm. Where are those kids?
Okay.
And just to put into for numbers, it's 47 greater kindergarten students projected are actual this year. And if you take kindergartens that are actual this year, move them up to first grade, there's an additional 32 of those. So you're really talking about 79
more kids.
They came from
right.
somewhere. I'm just trying to understand from them.
Okay, we have a persistence formula we use. And that's also based on what has happened historically. We always go up in first grade for those that went to private kindergartens and then join us for first grade. And so Ron Binkowski has a chart set up with a persistence rate and plugs those numbers in to give us our best guesstimate of what we can expect. It's always a guesstimate.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get to a sense for myself. Given the year, given what you see it, are these numbers? I mean, I guess we'll know for sure.
Yeah.
Year, but I mean, we have to make a decision.
Yes, and that is the problem in terms of that. But I did, I'll tell you, I did look at taking as my best judgment what I thought would be a minimal number. If I took those numbers down in terms of kindergarten enrollment and tried to figure out now where the heck would they be and how would I allocate teachers, you would end up having somebody driving around town, doing a half day at Holly and then having to move over to half day. It's hard to figure out where they would be. So, yeah. Yeah, do that. I will.
Fuel locked in at 2.4.
Right, whatever I said, 2.43 or something like that.
That's a year. Are we locking in with a consortium?
Yes, it's a consortium, which we do with the town.
Right. So I guess it's pointless to ask if we can, what the buyout would be I think it's 2. I know. I mean, is that discussed anywhere? You can find
A buyout on our contract.
Generally, I've been reading where they're being much more flexible, letting groups and people out. People are blocking it for hours.
Okay, you got it. Okay.
They're not having to pay a fortune, And some different districts have already, I think, done this. So I'm just wondering, have we explored it? If there are potential savings, this is sort of an incentive.
Well, we'll find out. Okay. Good question, Joe.
I'm going to try to wrap it up here. I know that Jim wants to follow up on a topic we brought up before. So, Jim.
I think it's one of the salient issues. When you have discussions, was it brought up the fact every other to the contracts, particularly in light of the fact that by not opening a contract out on paper, it's affecting quality of education, it's also giving them a lot of that savings.
Actually, they were the first union. None of the other unions had any concessions at that time, including the town side. So no one had made concessions other than central office.
I think it's important to mention that it is very relevant. I had a conversation with Joe Ross this morning, who's the HR of the town. Okay, and unless I'm misinformed. I believe, did you say that you had contacted all the unions? The concern that I think Jim's trying to get at indirectly is it's apparent to us from what you've mentioned and also from what we learned last night from the town side, okay, that 2 things have happened. That virtually every union that we have in this town has agreed to, and I don't know the official term, discuss, reopen, sit down, whatever the case may be. Okay? And I could be wrong, but my impression is that the teachers union has had less of a desire to do that. Right? Also, in our communications to the town, to show the domino effect, it has been, and I'm going to have those letters. I asked Carol for them. The other unions in the town have actually specifically stated that they're not interested in doing anything unless all the unions consider doing something. So it's kind of like an all or nothing thing, and from a town-wide perspective, it's very large.
And the other aspect, because this may be information to the another thing I happen to read in the town media comment by one of the union representatives that one of the reasons or considerations for not completing the contract was because of a request of 95% of last year's budget, and that appeared to be an arbitrary, and that was an arbitrary number.
I'll speak to that issue because it was on behalf of the Board of Finance that I wrote that letter to the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen. And the public should understand that when I wrote that letter, we had a long discussion about what we thought about the upcoming budget, and we were very specific on what we voted on and what we didn't vote on. And I'd be happy to reproduce the letter, but we talked about the concerns. I even went so far as to include our minutes in the correspondence, the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen and the Council, so they could understand the flavor of our conversation. Included in that letter was also the most recent state information that we had from the town financial director that we got from the state on the estimated revenue shortfall. The point I'm trying to make here is that we